foe moved on land, we would track them by the strange footprints they left in their wake, consisting of 5 circular toe marks. They were blind, yet had exceptional sensitivity to both motion and sound. In battle, these creatures could harness the power of the winds with terrifying precision. It wasn't until the great energy weapon was developed that we had the means to fight their evil. Then we were able to drive them down deep into the catacombs beneath their basalt towers, sealing all routes with impenetrable trapdoors.
So, after having a rather nasty run-in with Dagon, and another series of rather odd cryptic visions, we now find ourselves washed up on the Reef of Satan, which I think is actually supposed to be the Devil's Reef, which was mentioned before. But it does seem that the cutter Urania was completely destroyed, and well, we're kind of up shit creek without a paddle. But for the most part, Devil's Reef seems to be fairly quiet and, well, kind of innocuous. But that doesn't mean that the Devil's Reef is anywhere close to being safe. There are a number of traps. Pretty much if we look down here, we'll notice, well, there's a deadly pit of spikes, which means instant death. Also, there's a different colored tile over there.
What the hell?
And that actually triggers a very nasty trap. Now, it won't kill you, but it will take out quite a bit of health. We'll be running into quite a few traps as we traverse the reef here.
The winds here are fierce, and there isn't much shelter ahead. I need to be careful.
Seems was worshipping undersea gods, with heaps of human sacrifices and other heathen things. But they did all kinds of favors. Plenty of fishing and even gold.
Human sacrifices. Maybe you had just a bit too much.
one can assume from the drunken ramblings that we're hearing in our head, this is a sacrificial point.
A strangely carved disc.
He got something, wasn't that Eve? Out the other side of Devil's Reef. Some kind of thingamajig strapped out of there. It was given to him.
Now, I wish I could say that Zadok was who I would normally pick to narrate my mad ramblings, but honestly, I would have honestly chosen someone a bit more comprehensible. But we do have a rather odd disc now, and obviously all those pitfalls and the little cliffside areas are, well, instant death. Thankfully though, you can see a bit of miscoloration where the rocks will probably fall apart. So it's not that hard to just jump over them and kind of ignore them. But before we head forward, I want to take a little detour down here. It's very important to go down here first. And honestly, I have not found a good way to get through here without at least a few starfishes on my face. Thankfully, they don't do near as much damage as I originally thought. Also, we have a few cave paintings.
There is a disc missing from the engraving.
And we already find pretty much an immediate usage for that disc. Nice little hidden room, but also we find a pulley.
An old pulley.
We're going to be finding a use for that as opposed to the skeleton's use for it.
Before Father Dagon, Cthulhu waits beneath the dark ocean.
Look for us in your dreams.
This lever is the only object in the hoard of treasures not constructed from gold.
Yeah, this particular lever can be very, very easy to overlook, but is actually going to be very necessary for parts coming up. We do want to be very careful. Pretty much falling back will either lead to a fair amount of damage or instant death. Also, this particular area right here is a pretty nasty trap. You want to hang over to the right hand side here. And you also want to make sure to save because there's a little bit coming up that can be fairly dangerous. But you may have noticed the notch in the rock. Yeah, that operates a rather odd mechanism down here. But those pressure plates will actually set off an instant death trap, which, well, obviously is something we wanted to avoid. Now, normally this area would actually be fairly difficult if you took it slowly. You're supposed to grab onto the rings there, otherwise you'll be dragged out to sea. But yeah, if you just run through it, it's not a problem. Honestly, this entire area seems almost more of an obstacle course that just random fishmen might have had to go through to get down to, well, wherever this is leading. But before we head into that cave there, we're going to hop over this rather hard to see ledge on the other side. Because there is a rather, well, difficult section ahead of here, and it's mostly if you don't scout your way ahead first. Yeah, we're going to have to do a bit of a maze, and there's going to be some old enemies we haven't seen for quite some time in here. But yeah, it's actually fairly easy to get lost through here if this is your first time through. Honestly though, the easiest way to figure out where you're supposed to go is to follow these little spider crabs. Now there is another means that you're supposed to know which way to go, but pretty much the spider crabs are indicative of where you're going to have to head in the near future. And as I stated before, they don't necessarily do a lot of damage on their own, but what they do is cause poison damage, and, well, if you can remember from the previous parts of the video, we have yet to actually see any med kit, so we're kind of stuck with what we currently have, which is actually not a lot of poison antidote. Yeah, hopefully you'll excuse me here. I got a little bit turned around. That honestly was just a massive circle. But we are finally where we are going to need to be in the future. This very large chamber looks like it might hold something in the center, but it's currently closed off to us. And that's why we're going to have to head back and operate a mechanism.
Until I know what it's for, I'm not touching anything.
Well, thankfully we still have the Book of Dagon.
It appears to be a map. You need to press a button to activate the sequence. There's an intricate design carved into the button. It must have held some sort of decoration.
Yeah, so now we can now put in Ruth's brooch.
I think I've activated some kind of timed mechanism.
And yes, the timer is now set for us to get to that chamber I showed you before. Honestly, there's supposed to be these little red gems on the floor there that are supposed to lead you around, but they're kind of easy to miss. And honestly, it's fairly easy to just get overwhelmed with poison in this section. But we made it here in plenty of time, which is very good. Actually, I'm not even sure if that button will reset if you mess up with this, so it's kind of a one-time switch, which can be rather annoying. But we can now venture through the door and see where this inevitably leads us. Now this chamber actually seems kind of familiar from that vision we had earlier, but it's not exactly the same. It only seems to be relatively modeled the same. Otherwise, it is fairly empty. It's mostly the only noticeable thing to it is the fact that it looks rather dilapidated and underused, and that there is a rather large hole in the floor. And with no other place to go, I guess that hole is where we're going to need to go.
There's heavy gusts of air coming from the hole.